Trump advisor, Guy Benson, Fox News contributor, and Gina Loudon. She's a conservative columnist. Hey, Roger, let me go to you first. You're on remote. Must be music to your ears. But what do you make of the idea, though, that the pundits say, hey, forget about these numbers. We know what's going to happen, and Trump won't win?
Yeah, I think they're wrong. This is a very substantial gain for Trump, proving the disconnect between the mainstream media and the voters. The temporary ban on Muslim immigration pending our setting up a system that can actually weed out the terrorists, which was universally denounced almost by his Republican opponents and the mainstream media and the Democrats last week, has catapulted him up 11 points since the last Fox poll. He is on his way to being nominated, and with Christmas and the holidays and the caucuses being not very far away, I don't expect these numbers to change at all. I think Trump-NATO continues unabated.
All right, Rich. You initially, I wouldn't say you wrote it off, but you admittedly say now that this has definitely gone longer and stronger than you initially thought it would.
The conventional wisdom about Trump: first, it's a summer fling. Well, that wasn't right. Second, his poor debate performances will sink him. No, that didn't happen. Then, just several weeks ago, people were saying he has a 25% ceiling. Well, he has busted through that glass ceiling. And some of the internals, Charles, here are just astonishing. He has 46% among men. Nearly 50% of Republican men are supporting Donald Trump.
Guy, you wrote a piece, The Trump Cult of Personality and Its Conservative Media Enablers.
Yeah.
Is it all the free airtime that he's getting, whether it's good or bad? There was an old saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity. I mean, every time you turn on TV, you never see Bernie Sanders. I rarely see Hillary. And only until this week have I even heard the name Rubio and Cruz.
Yeah. He's crowding out coverage of other people and their ideas. That's definitely a big part of it. And again, if you look at this new poll, over the last week, there have been 4 major national polls. The first one from NBC News showed the race roughly static, with Cruz gaining, Rubio gaining. The other one showed Trump really pulling into significant leads. This is the final one. I think it's the sort of the tiebreaker. It's clear that this is real momentum for Donald Trump. In the primary, in the general election setting, Donald Trump has the worst favorability ratings of all the major candidates, and he's getting decimated by Hillary Clinton head-to-head, unlike Rubio, unlike Cruz.
Gina, I mean, you know the campaign very well. I don't know if they're worried about this or not, or if the idea is, hey, let's win this first and then worry about this later. But this is startling. As startling as Trump's lead is versus his Republican opponents, a 16-point swing. I mean, they've got Hillary crushing him in the general election if it were held today.
The good news for the Trump campaign is he's not running against Hillary yet. He's running in a multi-way primary with however many Republican candidates, and that's who he's trying to beat. And it's interesting, Charles, because I interviewed him this week after the debates, and I asked him this question. I said, how will you celebrate your victory if you get the nomination? He said, I won't celebrate. I have Hillary to beat after that. And that's how he sees it. It's about biting off this piece, winning, and then going after him.
Another thing I think is really notable, Charles, his ratings have gone up on qualified to be commander-in-chief. You look at Marco Rubio in that debate. Trump doesn't know what the nuclear triad is, okay? Rubio does, in great detail. His numbers on commander-in-chief have stayed flat, and that's because he's not projecting the kind of strength that Donald Trump is. And I don't think we should neglect Ted Cruz is on the upswing, in part because he's learning from Trump's appeal. Trump says we're going to bomb the expletive out of ISIS. What does Ted Cruz say? We're going to carpet bomb ISIS. His numbers on qualified to be commander-in-chief are also up.
So, Guy, what do you make of it then? Double-edged sword for Rubio, that young appeal. Apparently, maybe, if that's Trump's weakness, according to Darren, maybe that does ultimately help him. But it feels like no matter what, the overall narrative from day one has been the establishment, go home.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely been the case. And Trump is the personification of a giant middle finger to the establishment. And he's, it's working for him. I will say it's not just young people. If you want to look at who's going to win or lose a general election, it's based on where young people are going, where independents are going, where women are going, and where Hispanics are going. Look at these candidates' favorability ratings among those 4 groups, especially if you're looking at Donald Trump, who has universal name recognition. That tells you why a lot of us, aside from his conservative questionable credentials, are concerned about him as a party's nominee.
Very quick, Jane.
But it's also about where the base is, because if you don't motivate the base and they don't get out to vote, it doesn't really matter. And millennials really don't vote in very strong numbers to begin with, so I wouldn't be concerned about that if I were the Trump campaign.
You got to do both.
All right, guys, let's leave it there. President Obama held a year-end presser before heading off to his Hawaiian vacation. We do have breaking